Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best knives and gear. There's a whole bunch of different categories, including some of my own personal recommendations. There's something down here for everybody, so make sure you take a look. Thanks! What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I have a beautiful custom knife to share with you guys. This is the, and there's a piece of paper under here because it was holding it up. This is the Herucus Blomerus, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, LL07, and it is quite the visual stunner. This knife was, let's see if I can get it, you guys can see here the pocket clip wants it to tilt. That actually looks pretty nice. Maybe I didn't need the piece of paper. This was sent to me for overview, basically, by at Shaker MT 1970. A lot of you are very familiar with that name. Please give him a follow. Shaker is a massive supporter of this channel. There's a lot that I would not be able to do without Shaker. For those of you who don't know, I mean, even the lighting, literally, Shaker donated the lighting for this channel. So that guy is an amazing person. Thank you so much, Shaker. This is beautiful. It's my understanding he got this in a recent trade. Before we proceed here, you guys, a lot of you know how I handle custom knives. I don't do reviews because custom knives are not necessarily created 100% with an air of utility in mind. Utility generally is a foundation for a knife, right? It should, in this case, it is a folding knife, so it should fold, and it is a knife, so it should cut, and it does do those things. But custom knives often have an air of art or craftsmanship about them. What you're paying for goes so far beyond the basic utility of the knife that my style of review, which is essentially, you know, looking at it in the form of a tool, critiquing it in the form of a tool, kind of goes out the window, right? So for custom knives, it's more so like, wow, look at this. This exists. How beautiful is this? That's generally how I like to do things. For those of you actually interested in getting your hands on this or checking out information on pricing, I thought I had the card right here in front of me, but I guess the card has escaped. Oh, there it is, right there. Sorry. You can see here, here's the card. Herucus Blomerus knives, custom handcrafted knives. You can see the website right there, and you can check that out. These are made in South Africa. Very beautiful. I'm going to give you guys a look here at this actual card so you can understand what we're looking at here. This is an LL07, so it says liner lock 07 IKBS, so it runs on bearings, M390 blade. The backspacer is carbon fiber. Handle material is chantoyant carbon fiber. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. That's very interesting. We're going to look at that. I do not understand it, but it's very beautiful. The bolsters are Damasteel. The liners are titanium, and then you can see some other variances in some standardized features, maybe. Like many custom knives, there are a lot of different... Herucus Blomerus has a lot of different... I hope I'm pronouncing the name of the maker correctly. I always have an issue with that, but they have a lot of different models. They use a lot of different materials, right? So there's a lot of different configurations, which means the prices on these types of knives can vary greatly. Rest assured, they are expensive, very expensive. For the most part, completely outside of the realm of normal for most people looking to buy a simple cutting tool. But they do exist, there is a market for them, and people are definitely willing to pay the money. So if you want to check out pricing, you can do that on your own. If you would like to support this channel, I do upload every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. If you'd like to check out my Patreon, I do have a Patreon link down in the description. You can get your hands on some cool stickers and at the same time gain access to the video that I do just for my patrons once a week. It's pretty fun. The support would mean the world to me. Anyways, let's go ahead and get a measurement on this guy. Overall length of the LL07 coming in at just 7 3/4 inches, it looks like. And then your blade length is coming in, trying to be really careful not to touch the knife, 3.4 inches, cutting edge about 3.25. That is definitely a sweet spot for a lot of people. Let's take a look at some size comparisons here real quick. Up against the Ontario Rat, let me go and straighten this guy out. Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 is coming in at 8.6 inches overall. So you can see there, it's not small necessarily, but not big either. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in at 8 inches overall, so it's a little bit shorter there, not quite as tall. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. Spyderco Para 3 coming in at 7¼ inches overall. How's the action on this guy? The action is flawless. It is completely and totally. So you can see here, I'm giving it a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Motivation. The pivot is completely frictionless. Like there's literally zero. I don't think you could even hear it. Yeah, there's no friction in there whatsoever. It's essentially just waiting to be perfectly broken in. The only reason that this thing isn't falling shut is because the weight, there's not a lot of mass to the blade, and, in terms of height or thickness. So I can tell you, though, it's interesting, there is no sound of the detent being broken. And for that, to emphasize that little detail, let me give you an example of a knife where the detent actually makes a sound being broken. Then you can hear the blade swinging out and then locking into place. So my XM18 is a noisy knife. Still, it's a great knife, but here's an example. You hear that? That first cut is the sound of the detent being broken. In the case of this knife, there is no sound of that. Everything is it's just one sound. Clink. It's just the sound of the knife locking out. And it's an interesting and very unique sound. And it feels like driving a luxury car, which I've only, like a hyper exotic, part like performance, part luxury car, which I've only had the opportunity to do a couple of times in my life, but that's what it feels like. This is like a 911 Porsche. That's truthfully how this feels. It's beautiful, and it will undoubtedly break in perfectly. It's also very comfortable to flip, given the position of the flipper tab, the size of it, and the where the jimping is. The detent is tuned perfectly, and it doesn't really matter if you're flipping it, straight up with your thumb, it's going to flip. So this is perfectly tuned. It almost feels, this is one of those custom knives where I'm aware that it's made by hand, but it's so good, it feels machine made, which some people might think, well, that might not, does that feel like a flaw? No, it doesn't feel like a flaw. I mean that in a good way. Every sense of that in a positive way. It feels very, very good. Okay, we've emphasized the action is good. It's what you, it's at the very least what you'd expect from a custom knife, but it does, it had that unique feeling, so I wanted to kind of emphasize that. Let's go ahead and weigh it. So what we're looking at here is a Damasteel bolster, titanium liners, Chantoyant carbon fiber, which I promise we'll take a close look at here, and a blade stock thickness of not very much. I'm not going to touch it with my calipers. It's probably about 120 thousandths, perhaps a little bit thinner. So not a lot, not a big knife, not a heavy knife, absolutely. Coming in at a completely understandable 3.77 ounces. I don't think a lot of people are going to complain about that. If you carry the Benchmade bug out every day and anything heavier is what you'd consider heavy, then I guess this is a heavy knife. But I think by most people's standards, this just isn't a heavy knife. Let's talk about carry profile. Shaker, I have no idea if you actually plan to carry this. This isn't a caliber of knife where I'd go, nope, that's going in a display case. But some people actually do carry and use their custom knives. So, if you're going to carry it, the overall profile of this knife is not super thick and not super cumbersome. I'll show you up against the Spyderco Para 3. You can see that we're literally looking at almost exactly the same thickness. The Herucus being a little bit thicker, but the pocket clip actually doesn't stick up as high, even though this is an aftermarket clip. The overall shape, the flipper tab pokes out a little bit, but that's the same as any flipper. Which, what I always say is, if you're carrying anything else in your knife pocket, a flipper tab will bother you. If you're not carrying anything in your knife pocket, then it's just a flipper tab. It doesn't matter that it's there. So it just depends. In terms of height, yeah, it's definitely nowhere near as, neither of these knives are cumbersome. They just, it's like I always say, they have awkward carry profiles. The Spyderco PM2 and Para 3, both of them take up more room in the pocket than the LL07 here. But they're just not difficult to carry in general. So what I'm saying is that this is not going to be a problematic knife if you want to carry it. It's it's not the thinnest knife in the world this way, but it's certainly not the thickest either. So this would be an easy knife to carry. Certainly something you could carry in a wide variety of situations. Okay, let's talk about the anatomy of this because this knife has a lot going for it aesthetically. I love bolsters. I love them. I just like the contrast they create. And what we're looking at here is a beautiful, beautiful Damasteel bolster in contrast with, I thought for sure, this is one of those weird, this is like wood infused with, you know, some type of resin, and it's, no, it's Chantoyant carbon fiber. I am 99% sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but what you're seeing here, all of this stuff, is carbon fiber that's essentially been woven in a way to replicate these exotic woods. I don't know, I guess it's like multiple layers, and it's just a specific process of weaving, but you can look it up. I'll show you guys how to spell it again. If you want to, you know, check out how it goes into detail, or I'm sorry, check out the details of Chantoyant carbon fiber, but it is a very new thing. It's really cool, and I'm kind of hoping it takes off a little bit because we see a lot of the same type of stuff. This is definitely not something that I have seen before. It's very beautiful. It's sort of black, and I'm sure you guys are wondering, is there a hint of bronzy brown in there? Yeah, there is a little bit. And, you know, the deep blacks and this sort of sparkly, glittery area right here. And I'm sure you guys are wondering, well, what is that? Is that actually a different material? Is that the carbon fiber? So I looked at a bunch of different pictures of Chantoyant carbon fiber, and it seems to all have those spots with this little sparkly stuff. And I got to be honest with you, I don't know exactly how to tell you guys what that is, if it's a result of the process or if it's something different, if it's part of whatever else they add in there to get this look, but this seems to be the end result. And it's beautiful. And the contrast between the slightly reflective steel, the Damasteel bolsters, is just wonderful. And there's another element here, these blue sort of semi-subdued titanium liners. I mean, it's wonderful. Shaker, I can absolutely see why you buckled for this piece. It's wonderful. The blade is a very simple drop point blade. Initially, I thought there might be a recurve, but I think it's an optical illusion because of how this falls right here. The flat up here is very nearly mirror polished. You'll have to excuse my fingerprints there. Very nearly mirror polished on the flat. And then we have this hand rub satin finished on the blade. A nice swedge up top, carrying some, you know, reasonably meaningful thickness out there to the tip. Just beautiful. And behind the edge, I'm sure you guys are wondering, is it thin behind the edge? Yes, it's wonderfully thin behind the edge. This is one of those custom knives that, while it is infinitely beautiful, is clearly meant, I mean, there's more of a utilitarian foundation in this custom knife than I've seen in many others, right? The handle shape is very simple. The profile of the blade is very simple. There's a lot of simplicity, but all the details are in when you look closely, right? The scale is a simple shape. The bolster is a simple shape. The blade is a simple shape, but the materials and the finishes and all the little complexities are in there, and that's what I like, right? Doesn't necessarily have to have a complex and wild profile to be, you know, to have that wow factor, that cool factor. It can be a simple knife and just have some very interesting and very beautiful complexities that stand out. And that's something that I really appreciate about this. The blade is absolutely ground perfectly. I can't, for the life of me, I cannot find a flaw with the blade. Even these edges that I would normally expect to be a little sharp and catch my fingernail, they do not. You can see there it says IKBS ceramic. Sorry, I'm still needing to wipe all this off. The area right here that says IKBS ceramic, and then right here you can see the Herucus Blomerus logo. It says South Africa Custom Knives. This is M390. I think I mentioned that. Let's go ahead and move down here to the bolsters. Everything is nicely rounded off. This flipper tab, it just has jimping in the area where it's meant to catch your finger. And what's nice is when you're holding onto the knife, you're not running into an area that's jimped, right? Is jimped a word? I don't know. But right here, the area that interacts with your finger is not the part with the jimping on it. And I really appreciate that because it's not like, I mean, me personally, I wouldn't buy this knife and expect to bear down on it hard, but anybody who would, right? That little detail is something that the maker considered for somebody who might actually use it. This does have a slightly blocky appearance, And while, you know, areas like this feel like they might be a little bit sharp, it's really, I mean, in hand, it's not anything that's super uncomfortable. I mean, it's just to achieve this sort of continuous, it's like the same height in the blade just continues throughout the entire body. So as far as aesthetics go and like where my hands would go and whether or not this area is creating a hotspot, nothing on the knife itself really is creating a hotspot, despite this being somewhat... sorry, Mike, I can hear my dogs howling at something. I think it's probably the siren. But anyways, yeah, it's a little bit blocky, but it's not what I would call a hotspot. I really like the aesthetics of it. And I think even if it was a little bit sharp, I'd still be like, I'm not really going to judge it. This stuff is beautiful. I mean, we already kind of went over that, but it's wonderful. I'm trying to, get it in a light that's really going to emphasize what's going on here. There we go. Really, really nice, kind of looking like wood grain, and then this sort of glittery stuff that's, I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. The dialogue that I'm using is certainly not doing it justice, and the camera's not doing it justice. It's great. And if it mimics the same strength as regular carbon fiber, which is fantastic, in terms of strength to weight ratio for scale material, I love that, because you're getting something that's both beautiful and durable and lightweight, right? I mean, like, what more can you ask for? I understand the beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but I would venture to guess there's a lot of people out there who really like how this looks. Also, I'm making it sound like, because this is the first time I've ever seen it, Chantoyate carbon fiber, that it must be new. Truth is, I don't know that for sure. This material very well could have been around for a long time, and I've just never seen it. So somebody who knows more about it, you can correct me in the comment section, or you can add information in. That would be great. Back here, you can see the backspacer apparently is carbon fiber. Not much in the way of any details, putting emphasis on that. The details are more so, in where your eyes are drawn to, or is the color of the the liners here that are sort of slightly purple, slightly blue. They have a little bit of gear pattern in there. It is something that you can just barely feel. I think it's more so aesthetic, and, they do a great job of that. It is completely and totally seamless, as is the transition between the bolster and the scale. For anybody wondering, it is ever so slightly contoured, and you cannot feel the difference between that bolster and that scale. It is wonderfully seamless. As is the backspacer back here and the liners. The only area you can feel is the textured part. Pocket clip is super cool. It's also Damasteel, and all the lines are just perfect in there. Wait a sec. This actually is milled titanium. I'm sorry, I never got a close look at that, and I looked at the card, or I glanced at the card. Let's take a look here. Titanium pocket clip. I'm sorry. This is a titanium pocket clip that's got milled lines in it. I guess I just glanced at the card and just assumed Damasteel, but no, it's just micro milling lines on the pocket clip, which is beautiful. It doesn't change the fact that it's absolutely beautiful. Looks like we've got a ceramic ball right there for the basically to pinch this up against the your pocket if you're going to actually put it in your pocket. It's not going to carry deep, but it's also not going to carry shallow. I think it's a pretty normal carry position. It's very simple, what I call sort of a popsicle stick pocket clip. Kind of like what you see on some Medford knives. Actually, this style of pocket clip is mimicked on a lot of different knives. It's very common because it's a very simple shape, and more importantly, does the job that you would expect of a pocket clip, which is that it holds the knife into your pocket. More beauty on this side, more seamlessness. Everything is perfect. There are no flaws here. I mean, this is a perfectly crafted custom knife. You can see there, liner lock engaging at about 50%. And then the knife is absolutely 100% dead centered. There is no blade play on this whatsoever, which is just wonderful. I'm really, really impressed. A lot of times with a full custom knife, I expect there to be certain visual flaws, certain fitment flaws, because you're taking these expensive exotic materials and you're finishing them, you're adding a polish to them, and you're trying to get everything to fit together into a functional knife, right? So being able to do that, getting the detent correct, getting the, the action the way that you want it to feel, getting the balance the right way, right? All the finishes and everything, all the aesthetic stuff, you're getting all of that right, and then you're getting the functional stuff right, and then you're getting the little tiny details that people who are spending all this money, expect to be right, like the transition between this bolster and this bolster. People don't like to feel the seam. and they're still getting that exactly right. Why, you know, it's just amazing to me. I can't do this. I can't make this. So it's just really, really impressive. There are so many features of this knife that feel machine made. It's amazing to me that this is a human being created this. It's wonderful. I can say this. I mean, we're about at the 20-minute mark. You know, obviously this isn't something that I'm going to say, yeah, everybody rush out and buy this beautiful custom knife. No, but if you're somebody who already exists in this part of the knife world and you're regularly looking for your next custom piece, and you're wondering like all these things made well, you know, I think the fact that they are beautiful, obviously it's in the eye of the beholder, but most people can see that when they check out like their website or some of the dealers that have these items. You can see that. The beauty is there visually, but if you're wondering if I'm going to spend this money, am I going to, all those little tiny things that I, you know, look for when I comb over my new knife with a magnifying glass, am I going to feel satisfied? Is the action going to feel good? You know, is it up to, you know, the standards, you know, that generally, you know, in terms of people looking for these knives, is it up there? Yeah, I think you're going to be happy with this. And I don't think his prices are really all that crazy. I understand I'm being very gray there and very generic, but that's because there's such a massive variance, and because, you know, even amongst people who are shopping for custom knives, what is appropriate to pay for certain materials, certain types of knives, it's all kind of up in the air, right? This is wonderful. This is a wonderful custom piece built by somebody who is clearly, you know, a master of his craft and really cares about the final product. And that's really great to see it show through. So anyways, guys, I think that's going to be pretty much it for today's overview. I'm sorry if I missed anything. Custom knife overviews are always a little bit difficult because I have to do a little bit of additional research. It's not like picking up a Spyderco knife and kind of instantly understanding everything that I'm touching and feeling and seeing, right? There's a lot more that goes into a custom knife. At the very least, though, I hope that you guys were at least, you know, that's redundant. I hope that you guys were at least entertained by this. If you enjoyed this custom knife overview, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.